If you think your cravings are about willpower alone, you've already lost. As a recovered sugar addict and binge eater myself, I know what it feels like to be controlled by food. I used to crave something sweet every single night after dinner, and no amount of discipline could stop that. But everything changed when I actually figured out what my brain was doing. Over the years, I've learned these 3 simple habits that have helped me rewire my cravings, take back control of my eating, and finally feel confident and calm around food again. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly how I tricked my brain so you can too. There are 3 main reasons why our brain pushes you towards eating food, and most people are only addressing one. Here's what I realized. Cravings aren't random. They're predictable. And once you understand what's driving them, you can stop feeling out of control. So for me, I used to binge eat most days and on chocolate, lollies, cookies, food, whatever was around. I wanted cheap and unhealthy and would make me feel good. So at one point in my life, I was working 2 jobs and I was studying full time, and my day would consist of me waking up tired. I was always tired because I was working so much, and I'd wake up tired. I'd get ready and go straight out the door. I'd never sit down and have breakfast, and I would just be out, and then I would, try and not eat until around lunchtime, when lunchtime would come, and then I would finally have my first meal of the day. Or I would snack on like a piece of fruit or protein bar or coffees up until lunch. And then I would have lunch, my first big meal, again, go back to the busy work life, and come dinner time, I would have dinner, and I love having a big dinner. So I would always have like a nice voluminous dinner, and then I would head straight for the pantry and just be craving whatever was in front of me. And often I would always have chocolate, lollies, cookies, ice cream, biscuits, you name it, it was fair game. And if it was in the house, it was 100% fair game. So every evening just about would end up with me binge eating sugar. And I was on this mad health kick to lose weight at one point, at this particular point anyway. And, I just couldn't get out of that loop of binging, restricting, binge eating, restricting, that kind of thing. So because of that, I was always stressed. And because I was working 2 jobs, I was stressed. And then studying, I had a lot of external factors that were also pushing into my life. And throughout that process and reflection on it now, what I've come to realize is that cravings aren't a character flaw in us. They're actually a signal from our body of stuff that we're missing. So most cravings aren't emotional, they're biological. So for me, during that period of my life, there was fundamental things that I needed to be giving to my body that I just wasn't. And one of those things was protein. Another one of them was water. And my sleep was heavily impacted because I would binge eat at night and have a heap of sugar and then have a really poor sleep, get up early and go work a 16-hour day and not fuel my body enough. So then I would get these intense cravings when I'd come back home. And what I've come to realize is that the cravings are a signal. They're not a flaw in who I am. It's my body trying to tell me that it needs something. So when I was not getting enough protein, my blood sugar was unstable. When I wasn't drinking enough water, my body was confusing thirst for hunger. And undereating all day was triggering urgency at night in my brain, which was leading me to overeat. And then you tie in low sleep, ghrelin increases and leptin decreases, which are key things that you need to keep at a healthy balance to maintain your energy levels throughout the day. If your body doesn't feel safe and fueled, your brain will push you towards the fastest energy source possible, junk food and sugar. When I started eating enough protein, drinking more water and fueling myself consistently, my lack of willpower seemed to disappear because it wasn't ever really about willpower. So the reason, number 1, that we get cravings is because we're not fueling ourselves correctly. There's some practical tips that you can do and start implementing right now to make sure that you kill this binge restrict cycle that you might be finding yourself in and get your cravings at bay. And one of them is aiming for getting enough protein throughout the day. So that's protein at each meal, ideally between 20 to 30 grams or more, depending on what your goals are and everything, but that's for another video, so we won't go into that. And get enough water, 2 to 3 liters per day. And I cannot stress this enough, like water is so important for so many other body functions, but it is the key thing when we are trying to keep our cravings at bay. And never skip meals. So for me, I was always just like running out. I was never having a sustainable breakfast or anything. It was just quick and easy. What can I grab? What can I eat in the car or on the road? And actually having like a really wholesome, good, dense meal for breakfast will keep your energy levels more sustained throughout the day. Plan ahead. I never had a plan when it came to eating. I would just wing it every single day. Just wing it, whatever. But when you have a plan, you actually know what you're going to eat. Keep yourself within your goals and you will set yourself up that you don't then end up having these intense cravings at the end of the day. And another thing that I do is I always have healthy, high protein snacks available. And I mean, I might sound like a bit of a psycho, but I have protein bars everywhere. Muesli bars, fruit, they're in my car. They're stashed in my car. They're in my desk. Wherever, take them in my bag because I don't ever want to be caught out being hungry and not having something healthy to go to. And if it's high in protein, I know that it'll keep me satiated for longer. So remember, fuel first and then judge your cravings. So reason number 2, we try and work against our brain instead of with them. So what do I mean by this? Our brains are wired to minimize threat and maximize reward. That means they're trying to keep us safe and happy. And one of the ways that they can get us the happy chemical, which is dopamine, is by food. And it is one of the most readily available sources out there. So food gives dopamine to our brain, which is why we have these sudden cravings to eat. It's our brain going, hello, we would like some feel-good stuff right now. Can you get some through that chocolate bar, please? And these cravings are our brain signaling that it wants dopamine. That's what's going on. It's basically a dopamine junkie, right? And it will constantly want dopamine. That's what we're wired to do. And it is so readily available for us now that it's actually hard to make sure that we control ourselves around all of the food that's just there on hand. When we're not working with our brain and understanding what's driving our cravings, we're actually working against it. And when we restrict ourselves and give in to immediate urges rather than writing them out, that is us giving into our brain instead of working with it to get our cravings under control. So there's a couple of things that's going on psychologically in the brain when we are having these moments of craving food. The more you tell your brain you can't have something, the more it wants it. So for me, I spent a lot of my time telling myself that I needed to cut out sugar. I needed to cut out ice cream. I couldn't eat this. I couldn't eat that. I couldn't. And my brain was going crazy because what I realize now is that psychologically stuff is happening when we tell our brains that we can't have things. And for me, I used to always think this strategy was I would eat all the ice creams out of the fridge so that they weren't in the house for the next day. And then the next day would come and I would be, okay, cool. This is what I'm doing. Next day would come. Guess what? Cravings have hit. There's another box of ice cream and I would eat the whole lot in order to start again the next day. So it wasn't until I learned the psychology behind what's happening with our cravings that I was able to gain control. So we create a psychological war zone in our brain when we restrict food that we crave. So restriction increases dopamine sensitivity. When you heavily restrict food, especially foods that you enjoy, your brain interprets it as scarcity. And the more you forbid something, the more mentally loud it becomes in our mind. So you're not craving it because you love it more. You're craving it because your brain thinks it's disappearing. So instead of a cookie being a 3 out of a 10 desire, it becomes a 10 out of 10 and we sit there and think about it constantly because in our minds, we're never going to have a cookie again. It's the last opportunity. So restriction doesn't remove desire. It amplifies our attention to it. The next part of the psychological war zone is the I'll start Monday or I'll start tomorrow mindset. And when we plan for future restriction, our brain again goes into that scarcity mindset and it enters a last chance mentality. So it's similar to the last day of holidays or the last day of shopping sales. And where you're like, oh, we must get all of the things now because they're not going to be there again. That's the same thing that happens with food in our brain. So we go into scarcity mindset thinking that we'll never be permitted to eat certain foods again. Your brain thinks, I won't be allowed this soon, so I need to eat everything now. And this is basically to compensate for the rules that you're putting in around food. And then that ties in to it's got to be perfect or what's the point? This is our all or nothing mindset creeping in. Our brain loves certainty and diets create categories like good, bad, on track, off track, clean, ruined. The moment you eat one off-plan food, your brain marks the whole day as a loss. And then because you've already messed up one bit, why not keep going? And then what was just eating a chocolate bar that would have easily fit in your calorie intake for the day becomes 1,600 calorie binge on ice cream, lollies, cookies, you name it. And 1,600 is probably a pretty light number. It's probably more than that. I know for me it definitely was every time it would hit. We go into this mindset of, well, I've blown it now, let's just keep going. But we never overate because of the cookie. We overate because your brain thought the day was already over. And if it's not perfect, what's the point? Perfectionism creates binge eating cycles because we are so fixated on being perfect and getting everything right, and one little slip up then impacts our whole brain, and we just think the whole day's ruined and we have to start again tomorrow. But it's not the reality. What people don't know is that our brain works similar to a wave. We get these sudden urges, and these are our cravings. And just like a wave, we get a little peak, and then it goes up, the wave comes, and then it rolls over and it crashes and tumbles back into the ocean and just disappears. And our food cravings and our desire for dopamine work very similar. So we have these temporary signals from our brain that it's like, hello, we need some dopamine. What's going on? Like, can we have some of this? Can we have some of this? But it's actually just your brain getting this sudden urge of like dopamine. And because it's a dopamine junkie, they happen all of the time, right? So we get these triggers. Instead of writing them out, generally we just give into them and just say, okay, cool, craving chocolate, must have it right now. Scarcity mindset. Oh my God, I need to be perfect tomorrow. I'm going to go, just eat the chocolate. Then you're done. But emotional urges actually only last between 10 to 20 minutes if we don't act on them. So when we learn to ride the waves out instead of giving into them initially, we actually learn to take back control of our cravings. And we can sit there and notice that our brain is going, hello. Can we have some? Can we? You notice right now I'm getting a craving to have some sugar. I'm getting a craving to have some chocolate. I'm getting a craving for a packet of chips. And you can separate that with action. So instead of getting a craving and needing to do anything about it, you can sit with it and notice. And then ride the wave out like a surfer, ride the wave out until the craving's gone. And then move on with your life. Every urge we don't react to teaches our brain that this is an emergency and that we can ride it out. And when we stop banning foods and start riding our urges or our waves, instead of reacting to them, we can take back control of our food and our cravings. So the problem isn't that you have no control. The problem is your habits are accidentally training your brain to want food more. It panics about losing it and reacts before the urge has even had a chance to fade away. So once we understand this, we can stop fighting ourselves and actually work with our brains. So there's a couple of things that you could implement from today that can help you get these emotional war zone things under control. And the first one is a psychological trick, and I learned this from my psychologist actually, is setting a 30-minute timer. So if I suddenly get a craving to have chocolate bar, have ice cream, whatever, I'll put a timer on my phone and I will mentally tell myself, when this timer goes off, if I still feel like having chocolate, I will eat the chocolate because I'm not restricting myself from the foods anymore. If I want ice cream, same thing. But if I want it, I have to wait 30 minutes first. And this is me hacking that urge and learning to ride the wave out. Because if it's something that I'm really desiring, and after that 30-minute timer goes off, if I am still like, oh my God, chocolate time, let's go, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it guilt-free and just eat the damn food and then get on with my life. Because life is meant to be enjoyable. It shouldn't be this constant restriction and can't have this or panic. No, if you want it, wait 30 minutes. If you still want it, eat it. Move on. Just don't eat a surplus of 1,500 calories of chocolate. You'll probably be okay. Another thing that you can do within those 30 minutes is create a distraction. So take yourself for a walk, do something different, journal, have a shower, have a bath, go see a friend, whatever. Anything that will distract your brain from the craving that you're getting. Another thing that you can do is ask yourself how you'll feel in the future. And what this does, it connects to future you. So you can ask yourself, how am I going to feel in 10 minutes if I have this? How am I going to feel in 10 hours? How am I going to feel in 10 days? And quite often the answer is we're going to feel a lot better if we don't actually have a whole block of chocolate. We're going to feel a lot better in 10 minutes if we haven't eaten a tub of ice cream. Are you getting what I'm saying here? Because what this does, it teaches us to just pause and connect with ourselves psychologically, where we can check in and really ask ourselves what's going on and control those urges. So when you learn to work with your brain and its sudden urges, handling them becomes way easier. The third reason that we cannot control our cravings is we never really truly stop to observe the why behind it. Why are we eating? Do we need fuel? Or is it something else? So not all hunger is stomach hunger. Most of the time we want to eat for emotional reasons, not because we're hungry. I know for a fact because my emotional binges, they were emotional. I was not hungry after having a really big dinner for another 2,000 calories to just be crammed in on top. No shit. No way. Physical hunger builds gradually. Emotional hunger is sudden and specific. And this is where it ties into those intense cravings of wanting a sugary snack or a big bowl of pasta, something really comforting, chips because we're angry or whatever it may be. A lot of the time when we want to overeat on stuff, there's an emotion stirring inside of us and we want to eat to comfort that emotion. So often we use food as an emotional regulation strategy rather than just using food to fuel our bodies. So for me, what I realized for so long is that I wasn't craving food. I was craving comfort, and I would get that comfort through emotional eating. After long days of being stressed and lonely and bored and just overworked and not having any time for myself or a break, I would want to make those feelings of discomfort go away, and food was the way that I would do it. So after these long days, I wanted comfort, and food was the way that I would make myself do and feel good. What I learned is food is fuel. It's not therapy. But how do we know if we're hungry or seeking comfort? We start by asking ourselves why before we eat. We check in with our body to see if we need fuel or if our emotions are calling for something else. When I started asking myself why before I ate, my whole relationship with food changed. For me, I was always trying to calm my chaotic nervous system that was overworked and stressed out, and I was underfeeding it and overworking it and dehydrating it all day. And then I was wondering why I was stressed. When I realized this, I started to fuel myself properly, and I finally tricked my brain into stopping cravings. So you need to learn to look at food as fuel, not as a comfort source, because we can comfort ourselves in other healthier ways. We don't actually need more discipline. You need more awareness of what emotions are causing you to want to overeat. So if you take anything away from this, let it be this. Cravings aren't the problem. They're the signal. Your body is either underfueled or your brain feels restricted, or you're trying to solve an emotional need with food. And once you understand that, everything changes because you stop blaming yourself and you start responding to what your body actually needs. You start fueling properly, you stop banning foods and creating unnecessary urgency. You learn to pause and ask why before you react. And that's where control comes from. Not from being stricter, not from being smarter or more aware. So next time you feel a craving come up, don't just react. Pause, check in, and decide what you actually need. Because that's the difference between feeling stuck in the cycle and finally breaking it. If this helped you, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be breaking down more stuff like this to help you take control of your eating and your mindset. I'll see you in the next video.